Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being interested in the Laredo Webb County. Well, it's the MPO Policy Committee meeting, otherwise known as the Laredo Webb County Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. Today is May the 18th, and it's 1:36, and I said May the 18th, 2022. And it's 1:36 p.m. We're meeting here at the City of Laredo Council Chambers, 1110 Houston Street, obviously here in Laredo, Texas. You can join us as well at laredotx.swagit.com/forward-live or through Spectrum TV channel 1300. So I'm calling this meeting to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Ms. Vedones will call roll.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Honor Pete Sines, Mayor.
Present.
Ruben Gutierrez, Jr. Dr. Marte Martinez. Carlos Tijerina.
Present.
Commissioner Jesse Gonzalez.
Present.
Commissioner John Galo. Vanessa Perez. Mr. David Salazar.
Present.
Mr. Humberto Tito Gonzalez.
Present.
Mayor, you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Moving forward, citizens' comments. Anyone wishing to speak, we usually ask that you provide a card, but it's a small group, so if any comments, any thoughts, if not, and I don't see anyone approaching the lectern there, so okay, let's move on.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to excuse those that are not present, which is Councilmember Marte, Ruben, Vanessa, and Commissioner John Galo.
Okay, as presented, there's a motion to excuse those absent, and seconded by Judge Atano Tijerina. Discussion. None heard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to Roman numeral 4, items requiring policy committee action. A, approval of the minutes for the meeting held on April 20th, 2022.
Are there no corrections? So moved.
There's a motion by Judge Atano Tijerina to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez. Discussion. Not heard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not heard. Motion carries. And for the record, Ms. Perez is not joining us. Vanessa Perez, Councilmember. The next item is receive public testimony and approve resolution number MPO 2022-05 adopting the 2023-2026 Transportation Improvement Program, otherwise known as the TIP. Should we open a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to, so moved to open up the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion, the second is presented, discussion, none heard, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None heard, those opposed, none heard, none seen.
Is there, excuse me, is there a difference between a hearing and a testimony?
Well, we call it a testimony. We provide a public
Just
notice.
as long as legally we don't get in a situation, so I said, as long as we're okay.
Yeah, no, we're
Yeah, and the tip was presented last time.
yes, that's correct. Mayor, the tip was presented last time in draft form. In your packet is the final draft. There is no public comments received, and the technical committee and staff recommend approval for this final draft of the tip. If you all want us to go over the projects again, we can do that. I know we presented that at the last meeting.
Yeah, no, we did, unless any member would have a question or a comment. And if not,
No, Mr. Chair, if there's no comments from the public, then I'll make a motion to close public testimony or public hearing and approve resolution MPO 2022-05, which is
okay, and there's a motion, a second, and again, discussion. Anyone for or against this item? For or against? For or against? Being that there's no indication either verbally or by sign, then I call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None seen, none heard. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item C, it says discussion of possible action on the Chad Ruthinger Road project. Tex has been providing some updates. Do we have any other update, Mr. Salazar or Mr. Gonzalez?
Mayor, Mr. Gonzalez will begin an update on the Ruthinger Drive project.
Yes, good afternoon. The project is set on schedule for the August 2023 letting that we have planned, and as advised at the last meeting, we are currently coordinating with the City of Laredo so that we can provide them with the final information they need so they can begin the right-of-way acquisition process. But the project is on schedule for August 2023.
Okay, and that's the environmental, once that's completed, then that's when the right-of-way can be donated to the city, and then that's what's gonna trigger the letting, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the letting is the letting of the construction contract, correct?
Correct, yeah, the letting, we'll let in August of 2023, so construction should commence sometime late 2023.
Okay, thank you. And construction is anticipated to last, what, about a year and a half, 2 years? More or less?
Correct, but yeah, given the fact that this is a new location roadway, we're predicting it to take somewhere around 2 years. Yes,
2 years, so by the end of 2025?
correct.
Okay.
Should be open to traffic.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
once the construction plans are completed and the letting goes forward, we'll have a more accurate date for you.
Yeah, no, yeah, so the public will at least, you know, that's a very commonly asked, question to me and others, you know, when will we, you know, we'll have this road and we're anticipating by the end of 2025. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I did want to bring something up, and I think it's worth bringing to the committee here at the moment already. So when TxDOT took the project over from the city and the county, the schematic that was provided by Dannenbaum Engineers, it was an at-grade connection onto the west side of I-35. So as we've spoken in this meeting, I think quite a couple times, TxDOT is building a brand-new overpass at Achar Ruthinger, which is going to be elevated. So we have identified,
And we thank you for that as well,
Right.
because that's huge and for that area.
we have identified now the need or a funding gap so that we can also elevate that connection of Achar Ruthinger on the west side as well. So I don't know, I believe Mr. Rodriguez may have some of those numbers. I know we've been speaking, looking over those numbers. Do we know what those numbers are right now look like?
Yeah, Roberto Rodriguez, with Texas. Yes, we have a couple of issues right now going on. One of them is the elevating Char Road. We're talking about $6 million just to elevate the roadway to match with the bridge. Another concern that we have is the increase of the cost of all the materials. So we haven't got a final numbers, you know, for a good estimate on.
But the numbers are being resolved through TxDOT, correct? Are you asking the
The
MPO?
numbers have to be resolved within the project, the Achar Ruthinger project, which is
But
the.
force financing,
Correct, which is the category 7, you know, the MPO funding that we have for that project.
okay, so it's the MPO.
Correct, and we hope that within, hopefully next month, you know, we'll have a more accurate number. Because now we have to account for the inflation, you know, we're not staying to the typical 3% inflation we had through all these years. You know, the cost of the materials, the concrete, the steel, you know, have gone so
Yeah,
high.
because we were allocating every year, right, that category 7 towards that
We're
project.
banking every year about $6.5 million until we get to the
Yeah,
$53 million.
I guess the main thing is right now is that $52 million price tag that we have on the project is the estimate that was still provided from the county's engineer. So when TxDOT took it over, one of the first things we're gonna do was look at that. We have been working towards that, and we've been tweaking the schematic a bit to make sure everything falls in line with our requirements and standards. So hopefully by next month, we should have that updated, I'm gonna call it price tag, right, the number. And then we'll come to the MPO to see if there's any potential gap that we need to make sure and secure so that project can let.
So let me summarize that really quick. So bottom line, the original project was an at-grade crossing and 35. Now that we have the elevated crossing just north of Uniroyal, we're looking at elevating the main road of Ruthinger up so they can cross over 35. The escalation and the inflation prices is not something that we always account for the inflation. Unfortunately, we're at times nowadays where we're looking at even our current projects statewide due to the increase in gas and what's going on. You see what the gas prices are now. It escalates some of those materials. As our Laredo district, we have not quite seen those here yet. We are starting to trickle in across the state on certain projects when it comes to steel, cement, and of course oil products. So we're looking at that. So we'll do our best to kind of figure out what the estimate is, but keep in mind a lot of things can happen in 2 years. But we're looking to fund that gap within TxDOT dollars right now. Hopefully, once we get these numbers tied down a little bit. But I think the plan is here to go ahead and elevate Ruthinger and Shaft and tie into the overpass above.
Okay, my understanding was that beyond the 52, we were gonna be using, you know, the category 7, you know, for other projects, but obviously now you're thinking, or you're asking the MPO to, you know, to complete that, you know, the elevation and And the actual bridge itself?
So that is certainly an option, is not an ask at this point. We will certainly look at other additional funding that is available to us. If by chance perhaps Oil comes under, then those funds are available. If the overpass comes under, then those funds are also available. We've been watching and monitoring our lettings here lately, and Tito's staff and Mr. Roberto's staff have done a great job of estimating those where they're actually coming in under the estimate that we have. But again, it's hard to bank on that. We don't know what's gonna happen in the future, especially in '23. But we're looking at additional funds. That is certainly an option, but at this point,
No,
it's
no,
not an
I'm
ask.
not saying it should. You know, we want to extend whatever funds that Texas can provide to us, obviously.
correct.
But
That is
if
correct.
it's a must, you know, obviously
Yes, sir.
this MPO council can
And if you,
evaluate all of it.
if you recall at the MPO, when we presented the original Royal project, it was $150 million. We were able to take some of that money and move it forward a mile and a half to make it the overpass for the tie-in for Within
See, but that was strictly,
That's
No,
strictly
textile.
That is
Yeah.
correct. That is correct.
yeah, and that's one thing I want the public to understand. I mean, Texas by themselves, I mean, they put millions of dollars into these projects. Obviously, it's good for Texas, but yet it's also very good for the region and the city and the county.
And I think Mr. Gonzalez's main point here, that we're watching that, we're looking at it, just to get that project elevated to have a proper connection.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
at council, we talked about a TRZ, and I was talking to Mr. Selman about it, and he said that that's something we do with TxDOT, and they designate a project that they would need. I mean, is this kind of something that we can look at a TRZ for with you guys?
So, TRZs are strictly done, through city or county, offices. It's not something that we get involved in. We certainly welcome any kind of TRZ funds are gonna go back into infrastructure. We can certainly joint venture in that, but the direction for a TRZ zone would strictly come from the city or the county officials.
Yeah, this
It's
is
not
something that
something
we
that's
usually kind of work through the RMA, and it's more, it's not big money, but it's money enough to entice the beginning of a major project like we're doing, and maybe when Mr. Brown reports to us, you know, you can expand on that and see how that, that can work for other areas.
But
You
Mrs.
know, we
Perez-
started a study on the Loop 20 South,
So,
Yeah.
Mrs. Perez, you definitely brought a smile to my face today. I needed a smile today. So, I like the idea. I remind everybody that this phase of Route 3 Child is the initial phase. It's a frontage road. We still need to maintain the main lanes in the future. So, that is certainly an option that we would like to see happen.
Well, we passed it at council, Mayor.
which one?
For our TRZ in the Mines Road, when we were talking about the south, and then I kind of threw it in there for Mines Road area.
Do you want to get an agenda item? Because, yeah, we don't have one unless you can pick it up, and we can kind of
Yeah,
briefly
we can
talk
talk about it later. I'm just saying that, you know, since we're talking about Pachar Ruthinger, we could designate that as the target for that.
Yeah, we'll need a lot of connectors and all of that, and we were hoping maybe those
Right?
TRZs will provide, you know, the funding to connect to the main at Chet Ruthinger.
And Mayor, I just want to clarify real quick, and Mr. Salazar reminded me when he said something right now. The project that we have planned, and the project, the schematic that we got from the county, that project, if it's built as is, it'll function and it'll work. We're trying to think a little bit further ahead, right down the line, when we're talking about elevating that extension. If you do that, obviously, it'll improve the operations. But the project as it is, with the funding that we have, which we're verifying right now, should the MPO or we choose not to elevate that, the project can still get constructed. It just won't be elevated on the left, which was, initially, that was the plan, right, to go forward. Now we're just trying to be forward thinking and see if we can elevate it.
We need the elevation.
There's an opportunity to do that, right? So just wanted to mention that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
No, the elevation is crucial. It's, or else we'll have another bottleneck there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have-
Right, if not, what'll happen is everyone will have to go back to Uniroyal to go back to the north.
So defeats the purpose.
Right.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor, I was gonna mention that the MPO Policy Committee has awarded those category $7 right through 2023. And then, also, we provided the coronavirus relief aid, that we received some funding for that, through the CRISA funds. We also provided that towards the project. And then I think, I guess if that would change the project description with that elevation, we might need to amend the tip in the future, right? Or perhaps bring it as a new project, like a standalone project, but we'll look at that.
Okay. Is there anything else? And if not, thank you, and thank you for that good news in a way. Moving on to item 5, reports. A status report by the RMA, and I see Mr. Brown.
You're gonna make me work with the clicker? Can you work it if I, thanks. I'll mess up if I work with the clicker. Good afternoon, Mayor, Judge, members of the MPO Policy Committee. Jed Brown, Chair of the RMA.
Welcome.
One, was this
you all-
passed out? If y'all haven't printed it, print out.
You all should have a
So
copy
we have it, yeah.
Oh, you have it? Great.
in the
Okay.
packet, and there's a hard copy as well.
You're welcome to take one with you, it sounds like, if it's up there. This presentation was given last week on Tuesday at Laredo Economic Development Corporation meeting. Tito presented on behalf of TxDOT first, the mayor was there, and I had an opportunity to present RMA projects after the TxDOT projects. I think it was a good meeting, a lot of dialogue with members of the community that have an interest in transportation projects.
Could I stop you for a little bit?
Yes, sir.
And congratulate Tito Gonzalez. They did an excellent job of presenting the projects and the millions of dollars that are being, well, not only millions, a billion, over $1 billion, I think now that have been committed to the region, to this Laredo TxDOT region, which the bulk of those monies are here in the Laredo Webb County area. So that opened up a lot of eyes and ears of the people attending. So it just shows the magnitude of what's being invested here in construction projects here in Laredo Webb County. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will echo that. I think Tito did a great job in that presentation, and I applaud TxDOT for all the work they're doing and all the projects they have. I will say I learned something. You want to go first, because if you go second, that's when everybody's eating lunch, so you don't get to eat lunch. So, but back to the slides. Relative to, y'all can take this with you. It's updates of each of the 9 projects that we've engaged in actively. 1's completed, 8 are ongoing. Specific to what's been discussed today, I'll pick up 3 of them. No, slide number 8, the TRZ that we're working on with the city of Laredo is specific right now to South Laredo, to the Cuatro Vientos corridor, starting at Highway 59 and going all the way to the Bridge 4-5 location. That is something, and I'm going to learn a lot about TRZs in the coming months. We hear all about TIRZs with respect to the city. This is something new to all of us. I have to learn about it. I'm excited about it. What we're doing is updating a 2018 study to today's dollars, and this study is actually being done with implementation in mind. The mayor came to me on this and asked if it's something that we could look to do to help the city to move this part of the Laredo and Webb County along, and so we were excited to get involved. As far as the cost of the study, it's not tremendously expensive, but it is something that will allow the city, if they choose, to move forward with the TRZ in that area. And however the RMA can help in that process, we're definitely willing to undertake it. Myself and the other board members are excited about this project. We've already entered into an interlocal agreement with the city of Laredo to proceed, so the project has started. If you look at the next page, specific to the Mines Road area.
Could I go back a little bit? Because
Yes, sir.
people get a little excited when they hear about TRZs and tax money is being used for projects. This is not a tax increase.
As it's been explained to us by the attorneys and consultants in the workshop that we held a few months ago, that the mayor attended again, that I was there, and the members of the RMA, we all had that question, that it will not create or cause any additional ad valorem taxes or taxes whatsoever.
So we're capturing just the added value, the increment, correct? The added value of
Yes, sir,
of
Mayor.
new improvements coming into that area, that zone, and then the city would have to decide what percentage, they would be willing to give you, for projects, to allocate to, to projects, to incentivize, to invite, further construction in the area.
Mayor, I'm glad you described it, because you did a good job. That's how I would describe it, and if it proves to be a useful tool or something that we all study and see it working well in this part of South Laredo, certainly it could be used on the Mines Road or anywhere in Laredo that shows this kind of growth. And capturing that additional growth and getting a little bit extra allocated from the tax dollars back to to transportation projects would be great. Again, property owners, taxpayers are not going to have any additional burden if
And the reason why we're doing it too, hopefully the city will follow through, and I think they will, is that we always need money for, for road projects, for transportation. So we're always kind of, at the last minute trying to find, borrow here and there, and this way there's, this continuous, drop of money, coming in every year, and we can use it for, for these types of projects that would, complement, the bigger projects that are there already. Go ahead, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The next slide is something that we have agreed to partner with the MPO on, the River Road Corridor Study. This particular project could certainly morph or evolve into a TRZ if the city, the county, the MPO, the participants agree. I guess city limits, it would probably be a city TRZ project, but it certainly could be done. Our board members actually brought that up in a board meeting specific to this area. We as an RMA, if we look at where the growth and the demand and the transportation needs are of the community, it's definitely Northwest Laredo, the Mines Road, and then South Laredo off of Cuatro Vientos. Those two areas make a lot of sense to see TRZs done and studies. And I know, Judge, you've indicated studies aren't always the best thing, and I tend to agree with you, because if you spend a lot of money and you don't get something out of it, then you've wasted money. But this particular study, I'm excited we're doing it. This is something Dr. Martinez came to us many months ago, to the RM, and say, would you undertake it? And I'm glad we've agreed to partner with the MPO to move this along. My understanding is there's one document that TxDOT needs to submit to it's called a UPWP approval request to the Federal Highway Administration. Once that's submitted, and it could go out any day now, it's 2 days to 2 weeks typically to come back. Once that comes back, we're ready to sign the ILA between the RMA and the MPO, and then that project kicks off. So we're excited about this study. It's going to take about 12 months. During the study process, we can certainly be contemplating if a TRZ makes sense in this area. And I've never heard of it in the HR area, but why not consider it? If you look at the length of the roadway.
You capture all that new development in the coming.
Certainly, it makes sense to me. I mean, if you look at the area from Highway 59 all the way to Bridge 45, it's definitely as much, if not more, distance involved than what would be here from 35 around to the Mines Road and south all the way back to where this project starts at Kettle and Killam, where they all merge. So this could be something that could be considered.
Mayor, I'm sorry,
Yes,
can
ma'am.
some of this land is county, so I think we would have to get the agreement with the county on.
But the county now is authorized, I think.
on
And I know at first it kind of scared me as city managers, because they're saying, man, we're going to have to give up some of the general fund money. But you can structure where it can be a low impact, say 25% of the new, money's coming in could be, allocated to, or more, if you all want to. But it doesn't have to be say like $1 million or $2 million a year that is created, by these TRZs to help out these major projects. Yes, ma'am.
Well, just to add to that, I mean, I think that when you talk about, taking it out of the general fund and stuff like that, but when you look at the growth and all the trade that happens in Laredo, this is the area that's impacted and bears the burden as far as wait times. I mean, I know people complain about traffic all throughout the city, but you can't compare the traffic in some parts of the city to like how bad it is out here. And it just seems like this area really does need to kind of catch up in terms of infrastructure, but not just for, convenience, but like for safety, public safety, and also to make sure that we continue to grow, because, people get frustrated, the drivers get frustrated. This is a necessity for, and it would be nice to have a pool of money that we've already kind of, saved, put some money aside for, so that we don't have to come up
You
with.
can bond that money as well.
So I just think that it makes sense, like in this, certain areas like the south and here, to have these, so that we're kind of setting aside the money that you're gonna have to spend. It's like setting aside money for home improvements and stuff like that. You're gonna have to fix your house up, so it's good to have it put away.
And there's a guarantee that it's gonna have to be spent in that area.
Yes, sir.
Because, normally, as you know, once it hits the general fund, who knows?
Well, that's why.
Well,
Who knows where that money goes?
I'm sure Melissa Montemayor and Tony with the HNTB are watching this, hopefully, and so they're making mental notes of what we're discussing. We can certainly consider this and talk about it at the next MPO meeting, or maybe 2 meetings away, because it sounds like there's some information we would need to collect to be able to consider how this particular project could be done as far as a TRZ on the Mines Road area, but it sounds like it's a meaningful effort to look into to see if it would work and how it could work, more importantly. So I'll discuss it with our GEC, the HMTB, the people there, and then we can also discuss it with the consultant that's advising us on the
To be honest with you,
Cuatro
you're the perfect vehicle for that. I mean, it seems like RMAs were meant for, projects like that.
We're certainly trying to pick up projects. I always say we don't have deep pockets, but we can take pieces of projects.
But you can
and
plan
help.
them out and
What's that, Mayor?
plan them out and.
Yes, sir.
And design them, yeah.
Yeah, well, we're gonna do our best to keep helping.
Just to clarify, what Mr. Brown said, yes, we are waiting for the UPWP official approval from FHWA. So TxDOT, the TPP office, and Ms. Sara Garza, she forwards that to FHWA. So we're just waiting to hear back from them on that official thing. And then on the agreement, we'll go ahead and sign that. I know the MPO Policy Committee gave approval to move forward with it. You've amended the UPWP to add that study. So if it's okay with the committee, we'll go ahead and execute it and bring it back for ratification.
Right. Yeah, and I do think that the legal counsel from both the MPO and the RMA have blessed the ILA. So that's a big hurdle that needed to get crossed. It just takes a little bit longer for me than I'm used to on things like that, but I'm glad that approval's been at least signed off on by both parties. Then the last thing would be Vallecillo, as far as what we're discussing, and as it ties back to a char, I'm really excited to see a char moving along. As I will keep saying at all these meetings, we are 100% behind the char project. The RMA knows that it's a critical part of resolving the traffic congestion, mobility, safety concerns out on the Mines Road. So it's great that the city and the county brought it up and the TxDOT's now running with it. Hopefully, and I say it's a big hopefully, it can be done within the budget that's been assigned, the $53 million. I can tell you, in what I do as a principal occupation constructing apartments, the budgets from 6 to 9 months ago don't really work the way they used to. But let's hope it comes in, and something that with the Category 7 funds that have been allocated to that, I'm hoping that maybe once a char is fully funded, that maybe Vallecillo can get in line and get some of those funds. There's a possibility again that we could get some money out of Washington. I actually saw Congressman Cuellar waving at people on Del Mar this morning, so I pulled it and said hi and visited with him for a little while. And he's got some ideas of how maybe he could bring some more money from Washington to Vallecillo to help us close the gap. So maybe someday we'll be able to either get it from Category 12 funding, discretionary funding with the commissioners in Austin, or through you all, the MPO, with Category 7 funds. So we're going to keep chipping away at that until we finish closing our gap. If there's any questions on this, I'd like to try and answer them. If not, you can take it with you. And Juan, if you don't have my number, Juan has my number. You can call me anytime.
Excellent presentation as you did over there too. When we had that TxDOT meeting.
One quick question,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Buchanan. I'm referring to slide 10 on the Vallecillo roadway, and I applaud your understanding of safety, congestion, and mobility on future projects within the Laredo district, which is what we're looking at. So thank you for mentioning those three things: safety, congestion, and mobility. So looking at your slide 10, you have the Vallecillo roadway. Thank you for matching up with our master plan for TxDOT, because that is where we have the next proposed overpass, where your connection is on Vallecillo roadway. So I thank you for that. I know that we're always asking about, okay, how is this going to affect the mobility, or how is this going to affect the area surrounding the project that you have? So I noticed the future Vallecillo loop that you have there beyond east of 35. I know at this point there's no studies or nothing done. It's just something in the future that you guys would like to look at. Is that correct?
There have been no studies on that. It's a line on an aerial map right now. It shows up on the city's thoroughfare plan. It's existed in talking with the Killam's about the west side of 35. We've certainly brought up the east side of 35. At one point, we thought if earmarks came in, there might be additional monies to actually construct east. So we contemplated, and we've had conversations with the landowner.
So that's certainly a great idea, and I like the idea that there's another thoroughfare. I would ask, though, as we did on your Vallecillo roadway, where we asked you for studies how it affects other areas, that one in particular to me would be the intersection of Killam Industrial to 35. If y'all have looked at it, that Vallecillo loop does come to fruition at the end and we do build it, the intersection just below that at Killam Industrial there, currently it's not working the way it is, and we do have an overpass there. So I guess I'm looking, are y'all studying that intersection right there? It's gonna affect that Viceroy loop, or have y'all considered looking at it?
We haven't looked at it, and there's obviously a lot of history on how those things line up or don't line up, and
I think it's a great opportunity because if you're traveling north on 35 and you're trying to get to Killam Industrial, you're gonna end up at Viceroy Runway to turn around and come back. That's basically gonna go into congest that intersection. It's something that I think we would like to look at in the future as far as your realignment of that Killam Industrial to 35. Not sure if you're looking at that.
yeah,
But certainly be a good idea.
and I'll just tell you, we have never looked, that I'm aware of, in my 2.5 years, we've never looked at the Killam Industrial where it intersects 35 and the fact that they don't align. We haven't looked at that. We haven't studied it. I know that what we have looked at is the spacing, as you mentioned earlier, from where the existing overpass is to the north to where it lines up now. There was actually a little bit of dialogue that Tito could attest to at the meeting last week at LEDC, and people got excited about Vallecillo and the loop east of 35. You know, the outer loop was certainly going to happen someday, and it's vital to our community. Unfortunately, it's got a huge price tag, as you know better than anybody. This particular road could be, and I say could be, the next loop between Loop 20, 5969, and the outer loop to help traffic get from the west side of town all the way around to the east and to the south. And so long-term mobility, Vallecillo could be one of the more important roads constructed in our community.
Certainly, it's a great opportunity, but when we're talking about safety, congestion, and mobility, certainly that intersection at Killam Industrial at some point is gonna have to be looked at. If not, you're basically taking all that 35 traffic all the way to Vallecillo and make them turn around.
What I could tell you is that intersection, it's not our right-of-way. You know we have limited powers as an RMA. That's a TxDOT right-of-way. We can't control Killam Industrial, where it lines up, and where it crosses over 35. So I appreciate you bringing it up in this topic, but it's not something I can fix.
No,
The
it's
RMA
not.
can
It's definitely
fix.
not something you can fix, but definitely, would you agree with me that the traffic at the Vallecillo, future Vallecillo loop at some point will be affected by the intersection?
I would think it certainly needs to be studied.
Thank
So if I gather, Mr. Salazar, you're saying that, what saves the cost of another bridge, correct? I mean, it's there now, utilize it now and align Vallecillo with that.
That's correct.
Is that your point? Okay.
And Mayor, just to add to that, Killam could be an effective,
Killam
way.
Industrial?
Killam Road, yeah, that boulevard could be effective for residents to get out, but it's so congested getting up to 35 because all those trucks have to kind of wait to be able to get all the way to the left and turn around, and it's just not being utilized as much as it could be because of all the trucks that get backed up there. It really is an issue. It could be a very good way for people to get to 35 from Mines Road, but we have to go all the way to the loop or something because it's the wait time there is really congested.
I agree. Yes, sir.
Oh, that's it. I'm
Any
just
other point
here, I don't,
from Mr.
yeah, and I can appreciate this discussion of Killam Industrial being during the RMA's presentation, but it's not a project that we've engaged in. So just want to make that point.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much. Okay, moving on to report on the results of the external audit of the Laredo Webb County Area Metropolitan Planning Organization performed by the TxDOT Compliance Division. And there's a summary sheet that, or at least a summary that was provided to us. Mr. Mendiga, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to stand up. I'm just gonna go through the report. I don't have any other slides or anything, just the report itself. I don't want to deviate from what's actually in the
But
report.
we have a handout too.
You have the handout as well, it's in your packet. Just wanted to remind everybody right about this, how this came about, this audit from TxDOT. The policy committee had asked, when we started the transition, to do an audit, just to make sure that, how everything was functioning with, our operations, and just so, the new administration, new staff can come in and feel comfortable, right? So overall, the objective of the TxDOT audit, or the MPO audit by TxDOT, is to determine whether the MPO has implemented the necessary financial controls to ensure appropriate grant and loan funding management, and to determine whether payments to the MPO are supported by sufficient documentation and are allowable per applicable agreements. The overall scope was the MPOs and the cities as the fiscal agent operations from October 2019 to September 2021. And then the overall conclusion, this is just a summary that I'm going to mention here. It's a little longer in the actual report, but overall, the MPO and the city, as the fiscal agent, have implemented financial controls to ensure grant and loan funds are managed in accordance with applicable funding agreements, which is good. However, as the MPO completes the final stages of its restructuring, certain processes, procedures, and internal controls could be strengthened. So that's detailed in the report. I'm gonna go to the management response that I provided to TxDOT. And they didn't mention these as findings, they were more recommendations to the MPO and to the city as a fiscal agent. So the first, it's broken out by themes. So first, the procurement process. The recommendation that they have is that the MPO work with the city to develop and implement a process to check and maintain documentation of vendor suspension and debarment status before making purchases for those vendors. I believe that was just something that was not being done, but it's already been implemented. Mr. Pescador from the city's purchasing department, the purchasing agent, he was involved in these conversations as well, and he was at the exit conference. So they've already implemented those controls. They've added that attribute to their city EBIT system to make sure they're doing those checks. The requirement for it was mentioned. We just got to make sure that it's actually being done. And then also, we got to ensure that the city's purchasing procedures adequately describe purchasing processes, and those are communicated and followed. So there's just some instances where federal requirement was missing on that. That's also been addressed already. It's been implemented, and we're going to continue communicating with the purchasing department to make sure that's being carried out. And it's something that we could also add to the MOU. So this was very timely as we're finalizing that MOU that we can add these things. That was something that was also recommended in the audit to just make sure to add whatever needs to be added as a fiscal agent's responsibilities to that, and there'll be a way to strengthen that process. And if you all have any questions as I'm presenting, feel free to interject, ask me. The next,
Yeah, the area that I had a question on is the overall conclusion, and I guess that was overall addressed, and it's been satisfied?
yes,
Yeah, there were some concerns that they raised there.
yeah, there are recommendations that are being implemented or being worked through. So that's what I'm going through right now. Like I mentioned, it was like a 5-page management response. I provided that in detail too. And also after this presentation, if any of you have any concerns, questions, feel free to call me, email me.
Yeah, and I understand too that they're growing and learning curves as well as.
And this was a very valuable tool, right, going through this exercise, because it helps us, right, as new MPO staff, to make sure that we have all the internal controls in place, and now we know, what to look for, and we're taking corrective actions. The next theme I was going to mention was just the requirements for procurement procedures and contracts. On the contracts, they did notice that there was an anti-lobbying requirement that needs to be added to the contracts. So that's being implemented as well. And what we're doing is we're creating a checklist of all the federal requirements. So we're making sure that we have that, and we're gonna do a contract template as well. And I've checked with Sara from TxDOT as well. She's asking to see if TxDOT has some contracts that we could use. The one we have, I think, was from the city, and we've added some of those federal requirements. They've always been there. The only thing that was missing was that anti-lobbying requirement. So that's something as simple that we can do. The next thing was the request for reimbursement, timeliness and support. So this is the billings that we receive every month. The city's accounting team provides this to us on our expenditures, and then we just match it up with the work task in our UPWP. We submit it back to the accounting office, and they submit it to TxDOT for reimbursement of the expenditures. When we came in, when I took over, when I started my tenure as the interim director, there was some requests that were a few months behind. So we said, let's send them all at once. So that was one instance that they noticed that it was sent all at once. And in our agreement with TxDOT and with the city, it's supposed to be provided at least monthly. So, it doesn't matter if it's, you're behind or ahead, but they want you to submit them monthly. So it's not overwhelming for them. So one per month, even if you're like a month behind, which happens with accounting because of the reconciliation. And it's the city, right, accounting's team that reconciles and provides that to us. There's always about a month lag on that, but they just want to make sure that we're submitting that monthly. So we've been communicating with the accounting team as well, and there's new accounting procedures that were implemented through the city's accounting office as well. so we're compliant
Yeah,
with
let
that.
me ask you this, the external audit report that's gonna be done every year, is this yearly, or how often do they?
They usually do it, about every 3-4 years,
3-4
so I
years?
just, it's random. They
And
can also do
aside from
desk
that
audits.
audit, or we audited, and I say we because we're part of this, the MPO,
As an MPO? Yeah, so TechStot does audits randomly. I think they've done desk audits before. Sometimes they're programmatic. This one was more financial, right? But this came about because of a request from the policy committee to do an audit.
Right.
We had wanted to hire a third
Or
party.
simply since we transitioned, to a new system, I guess, with you now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the city, I mean, the fiscal agent, is always gonna be involved, and they're a very important part of this, so that's why the city staff that, have a say, like the procurement and accounting that are involved, were involved through the process, and.
Okay, because they do list, certain recommendations, so,
Correct.
how do we follow up, how do they follow up on,
TechStot?
or the auditor, I guess, or?
Yeah, I mean,
They
when
kinda
we get,
come
when
back
we
and
get
say-
audited again, I mean, they would look at this to make sure, but, I mean, it's up to us.
Yeah, but it's nothing material. or-
There's no material.
Just recommendations.
Recommendations, that's
Okay.
correct. But yeah, but I mean, it's up to, the interim director, future permanent director, to make sure that, those controls are being met, and to work closely with the fiscal agents. I think some of the recommendations in here shows the importance of that relationship between the fiscal agent and the MPO. And we need to work very closely. But, we have a good relationship with the accounting staff, procurement staff. We've had meetings with them, and we're hoping to have more meetings with them as well.
And you're saying we, it's the city, right, the relationship you have with.
Yeah, the MPO and the city of Laredo.
As the fiscal agent,
That's correct.
correct, okay.
And lastly was the internal control system. Again, they just mentioned to develop an agreement to clearly outline the roles and responsibilities, which is what we're doing. So with these recommendations, we'll be adding that to the MOU as well. Just to develop and implement procedures for timesheet and RFR preparation, which are those billings that I mentioned. That's been done also by the accounting office. They've implemented that. And then the last thing was to develop and implement a process for conducting an entity-wide risk assessment. This again was more a general recommendation, is, you can't really tell the city, go ahead and do this entity-wide risk assessment. My understanding that there's something similar that's already done, but as I mentioned here in the management letter, well, I'll go ahead and forward this to the auditor for the city and management as well, so they're aware of that. But it's not something that's really under the MPO's purview to do that entity-wide risk assessment.
Okay, we're gonna publish this, in the.
Yeah, it's in the packet,
No,
and then we could,
for example, on
we could put it on the
webpage or
website.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
for
we can be
transparency
transparent,
purposes, we
yeah.
can do that.
Thank you.
That's not a problem. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Online,
Like I mentioned, a lot of these were just recommendations,
on the MPO packet.
and we're working towards implementing this. And, as the interim director, I'll make sure that we're following up on this.
Thank you. Any questions or thoughts from the committee? And if not, thank you very much. We appreciate all your help and your dedication. And good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other business for this?
This is the director's comments.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I'll stay up here. Give those comments. As I had mentioned, the last month's meeting, we're gonna attend the TechStop conference. So myself and Ms. Briones were at the conference, May 3rd through the 5th. We attended sessions on safety, project selection, prioritization, environmental affairs, corridor planning, active transportation, among many other topics. And throughout the conference, something that really stood out was the importance of safety, right? So Mr. Salazar mentioned earlier how that's the priority for TechStot. So FHWA was there too, they mentioned it. So it was something that was reemphasized throughout the conference. So it's also a priority for the MPO. Yeah, in May, right now we're in May. I know it's hot to ride your bike outside, but it is May National Bike Month. So the city of Laredo, along with the MPO Active Transportation Committee, coordinated a proclamation that was held on May 4th. And there were several partners that joined. There's people from LISD, city departments, even county departments. There's representatives from the county planning department at that proclamation. And there's several events happening throughout the month of May. So Friday's ride your bike to work day. So I don't know if anyone wants to go out and ride their bike to work in the heat, but maybe early in the morning.
Also today, right, there's a rite of silence?
Yeah, tonight it's a rite of silence. It's tonight, I believe it's at 7 to commemorate people that lost their lives in cycling accidents. And lastly, on May 10th, the meeting with the technical committee, we had a very productive discussion about potential planning studies that are going to be programmed in the Unified Planning Work Program. We'll be bringing a draft of that UPWP at the next meeting to open the comment period. So we're already talking to the technical committee, TechStot, city, county officials, just to make sure what studies we need to look at. So we had a very productive discussion. So we look forward to presenting that next month. And lastly, again, our active transportation committee, May 25th, next week. Our next technical committee is June 7th, and our policy committee is June 15th, so we'll be here again on June 15th. And that concludes my comments. Are there any
Do
questions?
we have any questions or comments for the gentleman? And if not, thank you. Do we have any other business for this, the MPO committee?
One quick comment.
Oh, yes, sir.
Just like to remind everybody and thank Judge Tano Ticanina and the mayor for attending our Take Our Ticket campaign, which kicks off today. It runs through the Memorial Day weekend. Reminding us all to wear our seatbelts, not only in the front seat, but the back seat as well. Some quick statistics. Last year, with the Laredo District in our 8 counties, we had 54 fatalities that were reported. Of those 54, 65% could have been prevented had they been wearing their seatbelts. That would have dropped their number in half is what we're looking for. Also remind everybody our In the Street campaign. The last time that we had a 0 fatality on a Texas roadway was November 17th of 2000. Every day somebody has lost their life. We came close March 24th of last year. We had 1 fatality on a Texas roadway. It was a couple traveling in a van. The driver was buckled in, the passenger was not. So we came close, but just a quick reminder, wear your seatbelt. It is a click it or ticket campaign. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Motion
Thank you.
adjourned.
Second.
Law enforcement's gonna be very active. You know, they usually are, but more active the next 2 weeks, correct? So beware. And there's motion and second to adjourn, a discussion. Not heard, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, not heard, not seen, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, adjourn.